Good afternoon to you all. I'm very pleased to share some thoughts and reflections and updates to this good gathering today, trying to exchange views on very important topic. Many thanks to Dr. Samandari for his leadership in this work, the partnership with McKinsey, and the rest of the organizers, including Global Green Growth Institute, IAA. Very grateful as well to the contributions coming from the teams of the champions working on race to resilience and a race to zero. Before coming to this meeting, and I like the format of the labs because they allow more interaction and trying to get especially the experts in my team updated with what they should be engaged in going forward. And coming to this room, I was just telling my team that, well, let's have the calendar for actionable measures day to day from now until Dubai. In all areas that we are mandated to do, we agreed to do, we partner to do, we need really to have some sort of tangible, not measures now, but basically tangible outcomes that could really defend and justify why we should be there around as champions, leading the work in some areas in our domain, or working as catalysts to support the state actors, or we push the agenda through our partners better. So I think the days of preaching, pledges, and even putting a legal framework are done, because we have all of that already. We have a legal framework, have the Paris Agreement, and we have lots of coalitions, announcements. People have been dancing with words on how much they love the planet and the people and why they should leave no one behind. Great stuff. We cannot really be more aspirational than the days of 2015 that had the Paris Agreement and the SDGs in one. But everybody knows, including in areas related to resilience, we're in much more compromised state than what we were back 7 years ago. And getting the updates and information, many thanks to the presentation that you shared on how climate hazards are increasing the vulnerability and disrupting the infrastructure. And actually in any country, I was with our Minister of Finance the other day going through items on the agenda of work going forward to reform his budget. And again, like other ministers working in such global, difficult environment, there are many items that are very much fixed. Wages, salaries, pensions, interest rates on debt, domestic or external. And then you will see the biggest item on the agenda is coming from the state, either through the domestic resource mobilization, taxpayers' money, or through external finance, debts that should be paid one way or another by taxpayers' money, either tax as collected or taxes through inflation tax, which is the most harmful of taxes alone. And despite the investments in infrastructure, it is really surprising to see that there is very little support going into ensuring the infrastructure, in paying more in maintenance, in making the infrastructure, including the new infrastructure globally, here I'm not talking about a specific country, more resilient. I saw examples from some of the Nordic countries on how much they should really be spending additionally to infrastructure, including road networks or ports or seaports. And then this could really add to the cost, but definitely will be fully justified by enhancing the resilience of infrastructure investment. In this presentation, I don't know if you are sharing it broadly, but perhaps through one of your knowledge products, which we appreciate. Here are some of the examples. Extreme heat, reducing the performance of systems. Wildfires cause damage and disruption to infrastructure. Flooding can cause significant damage. High winds. So the mix of all of these hazards coming, as we monitor them, some of us as experts in the field, and some of you are, and some of us are basically taking the matter from the implementation perspective, and how much finance will be required in order to do the right thing in the prevention, which is much better than the cure. We're talking about resilience more now because we compromise the first line of defense, which is basically mitigation. And folks and colleagues, the state actors are negotiating hard next doors in the loss and damage file, because the second line of defense, which is resilience, is being compromised as well. That's why we are going more and more to resorts, including the last resort of loss and damage, because we didn't really get scientific solutions supported by finance and the guidance that should be coming nicely from the impacted community and society going into this field. And because we are facing budget constraints, the science might be there, but it doesn't come free of charge. So we need to prioritize, and the best way to prioritize is basically to get engaged with those who know the matter better, the expert, the scientists, and the community that is of knowledge to the world. I'll be very brief because I want to hear some of your points. So, focusing on energy, and this is the Energy Day, and we know from that report that I encourage you all to have a look at by Vera Songwe and Nick Stern, commissioned by COP26 and COP27 presidencies. They managed to go through all reports that have estimates or guesstimates of figures on the finance gaps when it comes to the energy sector and the infrastructure requirements. In your report here, you say that additional investments are required of around $500 billion a year. They are not far from that, but they are adding some of the infrastructure requirements that could contribute as well to sustainable development goals. So the external finance gap is north of $1 trillion a year. That is if you exclude OECD countries and China, but you include other areas of work that you would require to have, not just in the energy as a sector, but some of the areas of work, including training, skills, supporting infrastructure that is not in the appliances or in the network itself on energy. I'm happy to see this kind of concept coming from the global perspective of Nick Stern and Vera with dozens of top experts and policymakers in some of the projects celebrated today, including in green hydrogen. If there is any sector or subsector winning in this COP, it's green hydrogen. 3 of the projects that are going to be signed today have this kind of potential, not just to have the technology and the finance and the consortium, but basically the impact on the society at large and what should be done in enhancing the resilience of the whole ecosystem supporting these projects. And I'm more a fan of that. Then the very final point, if science is there but patented, protected by property rights, but you can always have that reflected in contracts. And then where the rest of the money would be coming from until we get this big question of the $1 trillion, this is adding a zero to the 100 billion coming from. I would say here, working in the World Bank for many years, I'm aware of the best vehicle, which is IDA, the International Development Association. It has very concessional terms that could be used, especially in resilience. And for that, you need these following terms: 10 years for developing economies, 10 years grace period, 20 years plus for payback after grace period, and then you need to charge only no more than 1%. Nobody's doing that now, including the most concessional terms of finance, but that is required, especially that we have been getting all of these promises of the 100 billion without fulfilling them. So if IDA and IDA-like, I'm not just saying that World Bank alone should be doing that, I'm saying extending IDA terms with this revision, because what I'm saying is benchmark but more generous than IDA, 1% charge, 10 years grace, 20 years payback after grace period. But IDA is only catering for low-income countries. Many of us are from Africa here. We know very well that Africa is not anymore low-income countries. It has non-low-income countries, middle-income countries, and high middle-income countries. If we do that, I would say, let's be realistic, low-income and low-middle-income countries would cover 95% of the African continent. If the private sector is there, it would need to be leveraged in order to do the work, de-risking. If the private sector is missing, it will be public finance, so we'll direct it through these concessional finance. We don't like to complicate matters. We need to implement, but we need to implement through concessional finance and supports. If you want us to give us grants, if the rest of the 23 countries, only 7 are honoring their obligations of the 100 billion, if the rest of the 23 countries are going to honor their obligation, that would be helpful towards getting these finances. But so far we are stuck with promises that never been delivered. Good words will not really replace good money, but we'll see what will happen in the next 2 days, especially in the partnership between public-private partners. But then definitely we need this proposal on concessional finance going forward. Having said that, happy to be here, listening to your words of wisdom, and good number of my team at the back there anxious to take some sort of good ideas for the future. What I like about this is mixing properly what we should be doing in mitigation and what we should be doing in resilience. So we are breaking the silos practically. So looking forward to the discussion. Thank you so much.